And when there are no problems, the players can begin.
So we're going to get a chance to watch Stephen Neal's draft. Stephen has just had a very solid weekend all around so far. I mean, you can't have anything but if you're going to be on this table at this stage. And I tell you what, he's not a bad drafter at all. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how he navigates this one. Fairly quickly, we tend to get a feel for whether or not players in this draft format are looking to be aggressive or are looking to do something a little bit slower but more powerful. Interested to see how Stephen takes this.
So far, I've seen all kinds of strategies being viable. Some games are over quite quickly. For instance, when players go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, removal spell, pump spell. Perhaps with a Renegade Freighter somewhere in between, games can easily end by turn 5 or 6. If you have a focus deck, I've also seen decks that just play defensive creatures and then win the late game with modules or late game bombs. All the options are possible. So let's see. Animation module is the rare.
Furious Reprisals in there. So we've got removal. We've got a kind of slow controlling plan. Hunt the Weak is a powerful removal spell also.
So far, I like the Chief of the Foundry. That's a card we saw just a couple minutes ago. Nice to start with an artifact and stay open. Animation module at the same time is also an artifact that allows you to stay open. Perhaps best in green-white. Because you have plenty of Fabricate cards in there, as well as other cards that care about +1/+1 counters. Also good in green-black. And Animation module is the pick. So this is the card that you can put out on turn 1 pretty early. And then whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures, you can pay 1 mana to get a servo. So it works well with +1/+1 counters. And it can also add extra +1/+1 counters or give you additional energy counters if you pay 3 mana.
Well, there are some nice options in red and green here. Voltaic Brawler, one of the signpost cards for red-green. It's a 2-mana 3/2 that gives you some energy, and you can spend that energy to pump it while it's attacking. Riparian Tiger has a similar set of abilities in many respects, but at 5 mana as a 4/4, it just naturally has trample. Prophetic Prism also being shuffled to the front here by Stephen Neal, valuing that flexibility also.
Oval Chase Daredevil, the 4/2 that can come back from the graveyard when you play an artifact, is also quite powerful. Wow, Prophetic Prism. I mean, I like it. I like Prism for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And Steven is fully open now. He just started to draft with 2 artifacts. So you can just look at what kind of colors are open, what he is being passed, and then move in. Saheeli's Artistry. That's definitely a good one. One of the better rares in the format. I'm even surprised to see it go as late as 3rd. Many people don't like blue and have said that blue is the worst color, but Saheeli's Artistry is still one of the better cards. 6 mana, just get 2 copies of a Gearhulk, for instance. It can do a lot of work.
I mean, it's worth noting that Animation Module, as much as it is an artifact and is colorless to play with, it definitely favors some colors more than others. Some colors, I mean, green and black are the ones that have the most in the way of +1/+1 counters. Anything with Fabricate gets you +1/+1 counters. But this is not a pack where taking artifacts is going to be easy, but Shrewd Negotiations does play very well with artifacts and with the Saheeli's Artistry already picked up.
Yeah, especially with the Prophetic Prism that he has, that is easily the best cards to exchange with. Or even with Animation Module, there are plenty of players who just don't do anything with +1/+1 counters. So you essentially give them a brick that they can't really use.
Or you give them a servo.
Yeah.
Lots of options there in terms of artifacts, and one of my favorite cards in the set, Panharmonicon.
Oh, I hope he takes it. It may not be the strongest card ever, but it's so much fun. I mean, to be fair, there are arguably some stronger blue cards in there, like the Ether Terrorist, a really good 2-drop. But if you take Panharmonicon early, you can command it. Yes.
All right, we're in, boys. I like this a lot. Now we get the
Yes.
chance to see what happens when you have a Panharmonicon early and the opportunity to draft around it. I am excited.
Yep, works best with abilities like Fabricate. Maybe you can pick up a Cloud Blazer. Typically best in a blue-white deck for that reason. Another one.
What happens when you have 2 Panharmonicons? Because they're not legendary.
It just triggers 2 times, I believe.
So 3 times in total. Yeah, because it causes it to trigger an additional time. We have 2 Panharmonicons. We are 6 picks in, and Is that right? 6, 7 picks in.
Yes.
And 2 panharmonicons. So from now on, creatures with coming to play abilities
Yep.
or artifacts, Prophetic Prism now
Yep.
potentially
We'll do it.
draws you 3 cards when it comes into play. Gearseeker Serpent will be, given the number of artifacts already in Stephen Neal's pile, could potentially be very cheap. But Prophetic Prism looking better and better.
Yep, and he does go for it. Works well with the panharmonicons, with the Shrewd Negotiation. Perfect. So far, he just has a lot of artifacts and, well, a couple blue cards.
Nimble Lookout now says, well, I mean, if we're working about Magical Christmas Land, Nimble Lookout is just, Nimble Innovator is drawing you 3 cards when it comes into play.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not actually 100% sure it works that way with double panharmonicon. That has never come up to me in an in an actual game.
It says on the card an additional time. So I would presume that it just counts up. It doesn't double.
It makes sense. So he took Incendiary Sabotage there, and now a Wayward Giant. Incendiary Sabotage, instead of the creature with the Ends the Battlefield ability, works well in his deck with double Prophetic Prism, which is just perfect to sacrifice to it. And when you are trying to set up all kinds of sweet action with panharmonicon and Sahili's Artistry, animation module, just go really deep in the late game with all kinds of fun effects. You do have to watch out not to get overrun by early creature rushes, and Incendiary Sabotage is a good way to stop that when you can play it on turn 4 consistently. And so far, his deck will be able to do that.
Dakura P-Foul the pickup there, and not too much in this next pack for him. Lost Legacy really doesn't do a great deal in Limited. Goes for a Curio Vendor that I think it's going to be a desperation thing if that one ends up being played for him. Ether Theorist, though, a nice pickup. It gains him potentially quite a lot of energy, lets him scry toward the cards that he really wants.
This card should not go 13th pick. It is quite good. One of the better blue commons, actually. So getting that late is an easy indication that blue is wide open in this draft.
And this deck is very much, it's worth thinking about it as an artifact deck as much as it is either a red deck or a blue deck right now.
Worth noting that he's not really doing much with animation modules so far. That was his first pick, but he didn't really pick up many energy-related cards or +1/+1 counter cards in particular. Maybe he can still get some later. We'll see, but those double panharmonicons are easily, way more fun to build around and also more powerful when they work.
Well, I mean, given that he's in red-blue, now he's going to want to see things like the red-blue signal card, Wella Virtuoso. That would obviously be unreasonable in this deck, but something like Error of Innovation, it triggers when artifacts and creatures come into play and could generate just so much energy for him with these panharmonicons going on.
Yeah, or just some more, say, nimble innovators, draw some more cards. He has 2 Prophetic Prisms, so he can easily branch out to some of the Fabricate colors. Oh, Metalwork Colossus. He could play it on turn 5, Prophetic Prism, another Prism, then a Panharmonicon. Well, here's a Metalwork Colossus. Maybe I'm going a bit too deep here. But
I mean, Unlicensed Disintegration, kind of interesting. Difficult for him to cast. Metalwork Colossus, I mean, it's gigantic and does dominate boards, and he will be able to cast it earlier than many decks can.
And he has a lot of non-creature artifacts, way more than usual in this format.
And Panharmonicon makes it cost 7, just before you start worrying about anything else, and he has got more, but goes for Unlicensed Disintegration. It is the more powerful card in its own way.
I mean, I have to say boring, but I guess when you are drafting for top 8 here, draft 2 at GP Atlanta, just taking the more powerful card for your deck rather than the fun Metalwork Colossus is probably the way to go. Fair enough. And you can easily splash it. Oh, Glitness Crane. He has a lot of artifacts. Will also give him a good defender. Foundry Inspector would also work well in his deck.
I mean, the Crane also, once you have a Panharmonicon in play...
Oh yeah, double trigger. Sweet.
Yeah, draw a couple of cards. You've got a 1/3 flyer. It fits nicely on the curve. It seems like a nice addition. While obviously with lots of artifacts, Foundry Inspector does cool things. The upside on Glitness Crane is great, and even the fail case on it, which is it's a 1/3 flyer that lets you look at the top 4 and miss, is not embarrassing.
No, I like this card quite a bit, especially in his deck. You can find Panharmonicon. Ooh, another one. Well, why not?
Another
Don't mind if I
Prophetic
do.
Prism.
Prism is also quite important for his deck because remember he does have Shrewd Negotiation as well as Incendiary Sabotage, 2 cards that really want to have an artifact like Prophetic Prism lying around on the table.
And the more Prophetic Prisms picked up, the more that things like Die Young get interesting. Aetherborn Marauder, the first card that sort of is playing into the animation module plan in terms of doing cool things with +1/+1 counters, but it too needs a bit of help in terms of getting +1/+1 counters in play to begin with.
Yeah, but once you get there, you can go nuts with it. Prophetic Prism was the pick here, going for the more for the consistency and the ways of turning on his powerful blue and red uncommons.
So having a look through here, well, there's a big payoff card for energy if he chooses to go in that direction, though it's yet another color to consider.
Ooh, Experimental Aviator. I love that one with panharmonicon.
Underhand designs, though, with all of those artifacts, there's a lot to think about here.
Yeah, but that feels like more difficult on the splash, because it's likely that he's heavy blue, heavy red. At least if he wants to play the Incendiary Sabotage. Well, he does go for underhanded designs.
And
Fair
it is a
enough.
very powerful card.
Oh, it does double trigger,
if you're
right?
playing
With panharmonicon.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, not too bad.
Just drain them out.
Yep.
Console Surveillance, which is
not much.
normally not particularly exciting, but if you've got creatures generating energy with panharmonicon, you can end up with a lot of energy.
This feels kind of like a weak pack. I guess Fireforger's Puzzle Knot would work with panharmonicon. Yeah, that's indeed what he takes. Still an artifact to find with say Glintnest Crane. Turn on some other cards.
And also he's likely to be in red anyway, so it's going to be something that you can use both sides of.
Yep.
And Ether Theorist seems like a solid one here.
Yep. Yeah, there's not a lot of good options here. Refurbish, no. Hijack doesn't really work because he has more of a controlling deck. Tezzeret's Ambition to find his key cards might be reasonable, but Ether Theorist also does that. And you get double energy with panharmonicon. No, he does go for Tezzeret's Ambition. He does have several super powerful cards in his deck, like Saheeli's Artistry or Shrewd Negotiation, that he wants to maximize the chances of drawing. So that may be why he wants to take it.
So we're about halfway through Pack 2, so pretty much halfway through our draft at this stage. And all I can say is I'm already so excited to see not only how this deck plays out in terms of the draft, but how it plays out in matches. It looks like it has the potential to do a lot. My slight concern is what happens if he plays against a deck that plays an aggressive creature on turn 2 and aggressive creature on turn 3.
Well, he does have Incendiary Sabotage to deal with that. Let's see, what do we have here? Thriving Red is meh. Cathartic Reunion is reasonable card draw. I mean, maybe he wants to shy away from the red, right? Even though he has Incendiary Sabotage, he doesn't have a lot of other red cards, and he could easily move into blue, black, also splashing perhaps the Unlicensed Disintegration at that point. And Thriving Red is a reasonable creature to have early. Also works with panharmonicon. Same for the High Tide Hermit.
Live fast. Another Thriving Rats here.
Because at some point he does have to think about how am I actually gonna win the game. Because sure, I have all of these sweet synergies, all of these nice cards. Can go nuts with panharmonicon. I can do stuff with animation module, which by the way might be another reason for taking the Thriving Rats. But how am I actually going to win? Well, a Gearseeker Serpent. That will work.
And in this deck, a Gearseeker Serpent could be really quite cheap to cast.
He has a lot of artifacts.
Yeah, Refurbish does work with them, though I'm not completely sold that it's going to be making the cut.
No, I don't think so. It's not a very powerful card by itself. It also requires him to add another color to his deck. That doesn't seem very likely to me.
So here we have the review. We get a chance to figure out exactly where Stephen Neal feels this deck's going. 3 Prophetic Prisms. We spoke about them being the glue in previous drafts. They do seem to just allow you to have a lot of fun in this format with pushing mana bases, adding additional splashes, meaning that you have sufficient artifacts that some other spells become more viable. I mean, Saheeli's Artistry in this deck is going to do something loopy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he could end up with 3 panharmonicons in play.
Yeah, and then make a copy of, say, a high tide hermit. Just get a lot of energy. I don't even know what he's gonna do with it. Maybe pump his rats several times. Scry some more with Ether Theorist. He will have all the options, but you can also just copy opposing permanents. I'm sure if he cannot find a good way to win the game, his opponents might, and then just copy that.
All right, so last pack, last opportunity at the big first pick. Though there's been that much blue passed to him that I think that he's probably got about 2 or 3 chances at what feels like a first pick, at least if it ends up to be a card opened in blue nearby.
Yeah, generally speaking, blue does not have a lot of great commons or many awesome cards in general. But if no one else is drafting the color, then you can pick up whatever comes your way.
That's the second Architect of the Untamed that Stephen Neal's seen. Make obsolete, pretty powerful. Aerial Responder definitely does work.
Some mana fixing. Metal Spinner's Puzzle Nut might work. Accomplished Automaton. Well, Fabricate cards are nice with panharmonicon. Wayward Giant, just an okay creature. I think he already has one. And nothing really jumps out in this pack. I'm also not sure which direction he really wants to take this deck, because he has so many options.
I mean, Ether Hub is a disciplined pick in as much as it means that whatever it is he's doing, he can do it more consistently. And I don't think he's going to struggle to make energy.
All right. I love how high Stephen is prioritizing mana fixing, especially if he wants to play a 3-color deck. Mana bases in Limited are often worse than in Constructed, and you do have to make some work to even get a 2-color mana base up to standards. When you want to play 3 colors, then prioritizing fixing as Stephen does is definitely wise. Let's see, there's an Ether Theorist, maybe a Live Fast, Reckless Fireweevil, that may trigger twice.
It may trigger 3 or 4 times.
Yes. There's also a Minister of Inquiries if you want a payoff for all the energy, but if you just have it as a one-off, milling the opponent is not always a reliable win condition. Ovalchase Dragster and Inventor's Apprentice. I'm not sure his deck is aggressive enough to take advantage of those cards.
Goes for the Minister of Inquiries. So, I mean, it's a 1-mana creature that gets your energy on the board. It gives you something to do with energy if the game goes real late. But, I mean, I think that just making more energy, he's shown that he's got a few ways of using it. It's going to be interesting. Foundry Screecher. He passed up on one of them last pack. Looks like uncertain about it this time also. Attune with Ether might prove important, though. He's actually not heavily in green thus far. No, splashing for fixing, not really a great plan.
No. Perfect. Either Skull Ancient. Well, that might work. I mean, it gives him an excellent payoff for some of the energy-related cards that he has. He has a lot of card draw, so he can easily get there. He was looking for some kind of win condition. Well, this will do the job. All right, and you can even set up some loops, right? Imagine you have panharmonicon or 2, along with a thriving rats, and you just bounce that. You can activate the ability every single turn.
Yeah, it does not seem difficult for him to get there with Ether Skull Ancient, and this is why I mentioned that he might effectively feel like he's got more than one first pick from this pack. If clearly someone else opened that Ether Skull Ancient, they were not in blue, had to pass up on it, and yeah, Stephen Neal finds his first pick as, in fact, pick 3 of the pack.
Yep. So now what he might be looking for is some defensive cards. If he wants to play Incendiary Sabotage, preferably ones with 4 more toughness, Daghara P-File is perfect for that. And so he looks to have a deck with a game plan of just drawing some cards, putting down defenders, another panharmonicon.
Now, you mentioned to me...
I don't think he has enough to go with it. He has some enters the battlefield effects, but he's not all in on that type of effect.
How about a Whirl of Virtuoso?
That will work.
I mean, you mentioned to me that you had seen a triple panharmonicon deck before, and that it was absurd.
But that was blue-white with also 3 Cloud Blazers and like Wistbeaver Angel and Angel of Invention. Stephen does not have as many and as powerful enters the battlefield abilities.
He is going to make a cracking amount of energy, though, and Whirl of Virtuoso will in turn make a lot of Thopters. this is exactly the kind of deck that I want to be drafting every single time. Like this is the format for me.
I mean, I can't wait to see this deck in action. I'm not even sure how it's gonna work. What are the key things to focus on? Like, is it more energy? Is it more +1/+1 counters? Is it artifacts? It's probably a lot of everything. Contraband Kingpin. If Stephen is okay with just going straight Grixis, and he has the mana fixing for it with all the prophetic prisms, this is a very strong card. A good defender, that's what he needed. Give some time with lifelink, that's also what he needed. And it gets him towards his key cards thanks to Scry. Perfect.
Yeah, this is expert level drafting we're seeing going on here. This is
Don't try this at home.
I mean, no,
or actually,
absolutely.
do. Yes.
Try this as much as possible, because I don't think that there's a more fun thing to do in the format than exactly what we're seeing Stephen Neal doing. But if there's one message to take from this, it's mana fixing is just huge. I mean, the Prophetic Prism pick two of pack 1 was by no means something that everybody would make. And the devotion to mana fixing that he's shown has really paid off in this draft.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe a nimble innovator here. Draw some more cards. Could also take High Tide Hermit, I guess, but he probably already has more than enough 5-drops. Just drawing more cards, going nuts with panharmonicons. If I were in Stephen's seat, I just couldn't wait until I could get to the deck construction table to lay it all out and then figure out how I'm gonna build this deck. Accomplished Automaton. Yep, it has Fabricate, so it will trigger the panharmonicon. Maybe you get 2 servos out of the deal.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this deck. It's going to be one of those ones where I'm not even sure that Steven's going to know quite how good or bad his deck is until he starts playing games with it, because it is one of those things where there are a lot of cogs moving in this deck.
Yeah, I don't think this was a madcap experiment deck. Even in a deck like this, that card is almost never playable, way too risky. But I love seeing how many options there are in this format. From energy, yep, Stephen's deck is doing that. +1 counters, yeah, there is some action as well with the animation module still. Artifact synergies, yes, it's in there. Mana fixing to play 3 colors and all the powerful gold spells. Sure thing. Powerful rares with crazy effects like Either Scroll Ancient in there. Can't wait to see this in action.
Yeah, there's no way that I'm going to take my eyes off the screen for the next few rounds, unless, in fact, I find that for some crazy reason there's a round where Stephen Neal is not on camera, at which point I might just wander over and have a look.
I wonder if he had gone into this draft with kind of the plan to draft a deck like this, because some of his early picks were definitely speculative, let's say it like that, but they work out quite well with, ultimately the collection of cards that he has drafted here. I mean, is it going to work? I don't know. But do I hope so? Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. The spirit of invention is alive and well here at GP Atlanta, and Stephen Neal embodying that. Looking forward to seeing what exactly goes on with that soon enough. I think the big worry is, I mean, it didn't seem like he was in a seat where he saw a very aggressive deck that he could have been drafting. But somewhere at this table, there's going to be one.
Oh, sure. I mean, Stephen was easily in the seat where blue was open. Almost no one else at the table was drafting that color. Certainly, there are going to be people in the draft with aggressive decks, and Stephen does have some defenders like Lindness Crane, Contraband Kingpin, maybe a sweeper, maybe a removal spell to stave off the beatdown. His deck may have some troubles with very, very aggressive decks, but not everyone will be able to draft those kinds of decks. I'm sure there will also be other people trying out the funky stuff. You know, there was still one more panharmonicon going around that Stephen did not pick up. Who knows?
We may see a panharmonicon mirror. Exciting stuff. We'll be back with more Magic soon enough, but for now, these messages.